First off, I want you to know I was very skeptical going into this movie. Like, super skeptical. I know where you're coming from. I was at the Dolby at Lincoln Square. Let me paint you a picture. I was at the Dolby at Lincoln Square, and there was another press screening the very same day at the AMC Empire 25. In fact, that was the main press screening, but at the last minute, this awards screening popped up at Lincoln Square, and I was like, yoink, thank you, because I much prefer that theater. But it turns out there were only 12 of us, and the Dolby at Lincoln Square is huge, so we were looking around being like, wow, I can't believe there's just 12 of us for this big movie. They gave us free popcorn, and I was able to eat it because there was like nobody in there. It was fantastic. So we were sitting there, and we were kind of like, I can't believe there's so few of us sitting in this theater. And the screening was at 7, and the social media embargo lifted at 6. So we saw all these amazing reactions coming up where people were like, oh my God, it changed my life. And we were like, this is ridiculous. Those people drank the Kool-Aid. There's no way this movie's that good. So quite skeptical. I sat back in my leather armchair, the reclining armchair with my free popcorn and soda, and I was like, let's see this thing. And it was amazing. It blew my mind. I was like, it is that good. And so I know that you think now you think I drank the Kool-Aid. And as I said, I totally get where you're coming from. But you're just going to have to take a leap of faith. I'm telling you, jump with me, man. It's great over here. And I do think this could potentially change the movie business. So how could I like Avatar: The Way of Water, even though I intensely disliked the first Avatar? I kind of came around, as you know, in the past month, rewatching it with a group watch-along, but I still, think the story has major problems. Now, some conspiracy theorists, who I'm sure are typing right now, are like, Grace, you only like this because now it's released by Disney. And that's the age we live in. And at such a cynical time, one does have to wonder if James Cameron's now trademark schmaltz will still play. Will audiences still be enamored with it? Or will they be like, like me with the first movie? But you know what? The new Avatar ain't so schmaltzy. This was a very welcome surprise. There's a lot of hoorah military stuff in here, and a lot more aliens, and a lot more like the cool parts of Titanic. So I was very pleased about that, and it allowed me to enjoy the film much more. And it proves that Cameron continues to have his finger on the pulse of audiences and realized that I don't think the first film would have played as well. A lot of you are like, oh, it's been so long since the first movie, or I've come to not like the first film. I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised with this new Avatar. So this time around, Stephen Lang's Quaritch is front and center. And I hated his character the first time. Hated. He is his moment where he held his breath, where he fired on the escaping people, and I thought it was so stupid, is the moment I wanted to leave the first movie. But I was stuck in the IMAX theater. I was like, I can't get out of here. It's too hard to get out of here. But I loved his character this time around. We'll talk about this is the non-spoiler review, so don't worry, but we'll talk about his character a little bit more, so just so I can explain. But I find his second tour on Pandora infinitely more interesting and complex than Jake Sully's. Oh, I really liked it. And while the first Avatar was very much a romance, this one is emotionally about fathers and sons, while story-wise, it's about military operations on both sides. Oh, I love that stuff. Since Jake Sully, now the leader of the Na'vi, has brought his military training and some of his equipment. They also steal a lot of the humans' equipment, in raids, very much like a lot of you've seen that with like Native Americans taking, from the colonizers so they can even the playing field. They do the same thing here. So Jake Sully has brought his military training to his new people and runs his family like an elite military squad, which I love. I'm like, oh, now we're talking. I like this quite a bit. I do not like the kumbaya stuff, and this movie is significantly dialed down on the kumbaya. I don't know if that's going to make some of the original fans be unhappy about it, but I like that a lot. And of course, that kind of action and character interaction is really James Cameron's also one of his sweet spots. So I think that all of us fans who felt a little alienated by his more recent work with Avatar and Titanic, being like, what's with all the touchy-feely stuff, will be really brought back in to James Cameron's circle. You know, those of us who prefer the Aliens and the Terminator movies, I think we're going to feel more like we're back in it. And that's really fantastic. I did, at least. And while these two female characters might be highlighted on the poster, they are actually not a huge part of the story. The only female character who gets a lot of attention is Sigourney Weaver's Kiri, Pandora's first superhero, in the midst of her origin story, as she's just teased here, and they have only a small taste of her burgeoning powers, but I'm here for it. I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. And many questions. There's actually a little bit of a mystery about her. You might think it's an open and shut case, but it is not, about what's exactly going on with her, which I think is a good hook for Avatar 3. I want to find out the answers to these questions. But you get enough that you don't feel cheated in this movie. She also clearly has a romance brewing with human Spider. And that's really interesting. Just that in and of itself, because, you know, she comes from Sigourney Weaver's human turned Avatar, and she's like an Avatar-human hybrid in some ways. No spoilers, don't worry. There's so much more going on there. And then what's going on with this human who thinks he's an Avatar? That's all really cool. And Spider on his own is a very interesting character. And that's all I'll say about it. I hope nobody ruins some of the surprises for his character for you, because that was really nice to discover while watching the film. We'll discuss him, obviously, in the Spider review, spoiler, and the Spider review. Spider, having him be called Spider is such a James Cameron thing to do. I love it. Now, do I believe Sigourney Weaver as a teenager? No, I do not. She is not good as a teenager, but thankfully the visuals on her character are so good and Kiri's story so interesting that the new character still works anyway. And you get why Sigourney Weaver needs to play the role, but you're like, I think you could have done better. Because hearing Weaver's teenage voice, which I don't know if she affected it or it was supposed to be done. I mean, I hope she affected it, because I would think like any kind of VFX digital team would be like, this isn't good enough, you know? And then also she's overacting a lot, constantly rolling her eyes. It's the only thing that breaks the spell of the movie, when you get taken out of it and you're like, what are you doing, Sigourney? Now, I know that teenagers do roll their eyes quite a bit. Some of you might be like, what are you talking about, Grace? It's an amazing performance. But you know what? I would say it comes across more like Weaver's doing comedy improv and someone in the audience, I guess James Cameron, yelled, now do a teenager. And this is her quick take on it, rather than her actually becoming the character. But again, I love the character because it's just so cool. Sigourney Weaver can't mess it up. But besides that quibble, the spell of Avatar 2 is even more mesmerizing than the first film. I didn't fall for the first movie. I was never that impressed with the original film's VFX or 3D. I couldn't believe people who are like, I feel like I've been transported to Pandora. I was like, really? But with this film, I'm like, wow, I'm here with you too. This is great. I've seen some people also compare this new movie to a theme park attraction, and I would say that is accurate as well. Speaking of theme park attractions, I do like me some Flights of Passage at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Even though I did not care for the first film, that is one heck of a ride. In fact, it's the best theme park attraction I've ever been on to this day. Although thanks to the pandemic, I have still to ride Rise of the Resistance. But this was like being on that ride for 3 hours. The line of that is often 3 hours. You could watch Avatar 2 and then get on the ride. And they're going to reskin that ride, put a new movie in it to update it for this film. And I'm excited for that. And as I said in my initial business reaction to Avatar: The Way of Water, this is probably as close as you can get to a total immersive experience without putting on an actual Oculus headset. And on that note, I have done the Star Wars virtual reality experience that used to be at Disneyland, Downtown Disney, and that was incredible. I loved that, and this reminds me of that as well. Let's get one of those going. I would totally sign up for an Avatar VR experience, and I felt I kind of already did one. I really feel Avatar 2 in premium 3D takes the movie-going experience to the next level and makes it more like a ride. And of course, you don't want to do that for dramatic films, but I would hope to see comic book movies and Star Wars, etc., a Jurassic World movie. Oh my God, that would be incredible. Give this technology a try. We're all 3D'd out. We thought 3D was dead, but James Cameron, just when we thought we were out, he pulls us back in. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. I'm back in. And again, you're going to be like, I don't believe it. Well, you have to see it to believe it. And I'm telling you, take the leap of faith. But only in premium 3D. I can't speak for what the regular 3D experience might be like. And even beyond putting you on Pandora, the CGI acting is also incredible, as well as the realization of those characters themselves. James Cameron's been talking some smack about Thanos, and I wish he would stop talking smack about other people's work just to build up his own. But it is true, though. You're like, that's mean, James, although correct. The first movie, I was always aware that I was watching a CGI construct. I was like, it looks like CGI to me. You're not fooling me for 1 second. And I felt that way with other CGI characters in movies as well. I'm never like, wow, Thanos is actually standing there. I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of looks like Josh Brolin. Weird. His arms look a little Gumby. Here, I felt I was looking at actual living beings. It was incredible. It was incredible. There's one shot or scene when Neytiri is on this ship fighting amongst all this water and flames, so you have all these elements around her, and she looked real. I felt like I could reach out and touch her. I was like, wow, she's right there in front of me. It was really cool. Like, I've seen a picture of some statues. I think it's like in one of the Disneylands in Asia, and they were like, ooh, look, avatars are real. And I was like, you guys are ridiculous. And now I see this, and I'm like, they are real. It really was like that statue came to life and walked around in front of me. It was neat. It's so cool. It's like, it reminds me of a side note. I have to tell you this story. When I was growing up, my family and I had this stuffed animal that looked so much like Fozzie the Bear. He was voted stuffed animal most likely to come to life. And that's what this movie is like. You're like, oh wow, it actually came true. I can't believe it. It's really uncanny. And the performances are much better. The subtleties that the CGI is able to capture from the actors' initial performances translates to their CGI counterparts, and it makes a huge difference. So you not only believe the character is real, but you're able to connect with it. You're like, I see you, or as they do here, I see you. I mean, I was like, wow. And I'm even doing that stupid I see you bit. That's how much this movie sucked me in. My favorite character, as I said, by far and away, is Stephen Lang's Quaritch. I love a good military character, who, as he says, and this is an incredible line, has been reincarnated in the body of his enemy. Now, he means it as a hoorah motivational speech, but what is it they say about walking in someone else's shoes? What does that do? It's brilliant! And I think, this is only, this is just the beginning of his journey. Oh, it was so great. I'm like, wow, this is a good idea. In the original movie, as I said, I hated his character, hated him, as I thought he was so broad, a caricature of the military. But here, as he wrestles with a situation that isn't so black and white, even to him, his story becomes infinitely more interesting, and therefore the movie itself. It's really 50%, maybe even 60% his movie. It's as if Cameron recruited the squad from Aliens to take over half this movie. And that is a fantastic idea. Yes, please. On the other side, well, what's happened in the rest of the movie? Well, it's Jake and Neytiri's family, where despite Neytiri's strength and skill and being basically the princess of what was originally her tribe, right? Jake is the visitor. He's the one calling all the shots, both inside and outside of their family. And it was a bit disappointing to see Zoe Saldana's Neytiri not only take such a back seat to him when they were really kind of partners in the first movie and she was in many ways leading him. It would be like if Pocahontas started following John Smith around and being like, what do you think we should do? And you're like, what the heck am I watching? But I think the most disappointing thing was that she spent so much of the movie crying. She cried a lot. She quietly cried. She cried like very heavily. It was a lot of crying. I don't know why Zoe Saldana always has this happen to her. When is she going to be able to just really totally have an amazing role? At least in the third act, she steps up action-wise. But still, I'm hoping Avatar 3 is her movie. The real focus on this side is Sully and his second-born son, Loak, desperate to prove himself to his father and live up to his father's now legend within their tribe. It's a story as old as time, but Hollywood keeps telling it because it's a good story, and it's good here. Also, Britton Dalton does a fantastic job as Loak. He is a far better actor than Sam Worthington ever was in the original film, with a much more interesting story, to me at least. And he has brooding teenager dad. He knows how to play brooding teenager quite well. He was really good. He was not a caricature, as I felt Sigourney Weaver's character sometimes slipped into. As As for Worthington, he spends most of his time giving out orders to his family, and that shorthand, I think, works very well with Worthington's limited acting skills. So he comes across here much better as well. Also, he has some more quiet, introspective moments, and you're able to kind of like give him the benefit of the doubt with his performance. You're like, oh, let me fill in the blanks for you here. And he's like, thank you, because I can't do it. You also get a lot of story in 3 hours. You might be like, duh, of course I do. But you know what? There's just, I guess what I mean is there's a lot going on because the cast has expanded exponentially from the first movie. There are so many more characters, and there are also a lot more locations that are fully explored. So and several new elements, by the way, are introduced halfway through that I won't spoil here because they were a genuine surprise that have not been played up in the trailer. So you're like, oh wow, what's this? So it breathes new life into the movie. It's almost, instead of like a movie, I wouldn't even really say the movie has a 3-act structure because it's weird to introduce these huge new elements halfway through your film. So it almost to me felt like 3 episodes of a streaming series that have been aired as a movie, and you have another 3 episodes waiting for us with Avatar 3. It's like it reminds me a little bit of Andor in that way, but I didn't think there were any boring parts like there were in Andor. And cue the people saying there's nothing boring about Andor, but the rest of us know what I mean. But yeah, I think I would put it in a similar class as Andor, though. When Andor works, I think so. When Andor works, I like Andor a scooch more. But this isn't the same. It's cut from the same cloth, so that's excellent. So instead of just focusing on the environmental message and the romance like in the first film, which was really not my bag, here so much story is being thrown at you and so many different types of stories that it helps keep you more engaged. Like a series would, like an ongoing series that has a lot of threads instead of just a 3-act structure. So that's interesting too. That's just so fascinating. I wonder if James Cameron did that intentionally. Again, understanding how people consume stories these days. And not only taking the cynical aspects of society, but also that we prefer streaming stories in a way. That's really interesting to me. That's very interesting. It is like that. Oh, that's so cool. We maybe spend a little too much time underwater exploring how the Metkayina live. But how bad can an extended trip to the beach be? Tropical-themed movies, even beyond Avatar, which I think to a large degree started the trend, have done very well in the winter months, serving as an escape from the cold weather. And Avatar 2 is one doozy of an escape. I really did feel like I was in the water. That was so cool. If you liked Aliens and you liked Titanic, you will enjoy Avatar 2, which borrows heavily, sometimes ridiculously so, particularly Titanic. It borrows a lot from Titanic. But, I guess borrow from their best, right? So you'll enjoy this film. Also, if you like theme park attractions, this is one heck of a ride. And you have that feel. I really did feel not just like an escape to a different world, but like I was on vacation. That was really cool. It was like going on a ride. Now, as you know, the press screening was in Dolby 3D. So between Christmas and New Year's, I have purchased tickets to go see this again in IMAX 3D. And I'm having trouble still convincing people to go. So that's why I did it between Christmas and New Year's, because I don't want to miss out on family and friends time right now. But between Christmas and New Year's, I'm like, you know what? If I have to, I'll go by myself. I'm definitely seeing this again. Sometimes plans to see something again fall through. I was going to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever again in theaters, but unfortunately, because it was such a long movie and, I'd already seen it, it's a little bit of a downer, as you know, and the weather was so nice at that time in New York City, I have to say my plans fell through. And I was like, I'll catch it again sometime down the line. But with this, I really want to see it in IMAX 3D. I want to see what that experience is like. And also, I just want to go on this ride again. I really want to go on the ride again. So I'm definitely going to see it a second time. I love it. If you care at all also about the movies or the movie business, you should see it in premium 3D. Because unless this is a total box office bomb, and let's see, again, today you never know. But I suspect it's going to change the movie business yet again. But enough people have to see this. It's not going to have the same effect if you watched it in 2D on streaming later on. I mean, it's a good story, but it's really the ride that is what makes it a unique and special experience. And that's what theaters want. They want you to have to come to the theater. They better build some more premium screens. And hey, James Cameron was able to make me a believer in Avatar. Me! When I was really, not feeling it. I was mighty skeptical. Again, even though I kind of came around on the first film, I was still very skeptical going in to see this film. And he got me. He got me from the first scene. When that vine went in front of my face, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. All right, so that's my non-spoiler review of Avatar 2. Spoiler coverage coming later this week when the film hits theaters across the globe. And of course, we'll talk about its box office on Sunday. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.